Hello race fans and welcome to the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada live on Apex Racing TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Today is round 2 of the championship following a fantastic battle at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. But today we've stepped over the borders into New York State for Watkins Glen. Joining me here in the commentary booth is Brian Delp, and in production we have Marco Barbanera. Brian, we've had 2 weeks to think about the last round. What are you thinking coming into this race?
Well, Watkins Glen is one of the most amazing tracks that you find in the world and well revered. It's a very fast track and many see it that way. So there's a lot of places here that you can get out of sorts. A big issue for a lot of people is turn 1. There's that big runoff area that you can use, and sometimes you end up pushing your opponent wide or you go wide, and then a whole mess happens behind you, especially turn 1 on the first lap. So a lot of fun is going to happen here today, a lot of good racing, and I'm excited to see what the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge brings to the table.
So if you're new to the series here, first of all, welcome and thank you for your company. What you're seeing here on screen is 30 of the finest sim racers anywhere in Canada. And all of our drivers here had to qualify for the privilege to take part in this 4-race event. As I said, 2 weeks ago, we had our first round at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park when Brandon Hawken took the win in convincing fashion and was able to break away from a snarling pack behind him. Now, over these 4 rounds, the drivers will be gathering points but towards an overall championship. And the series champion, well, what a prize they have in store. They can win a trip of a lifetime to Porsche Paradise, a dinner, overnight stay and Porsche track experience or ice driving. They also win a 911 Bluetooth speaker, a Porsche Motorsport jacket, and 100 iRacing credits. So if you see the drivers driving aggressively, trying to fight to the front, that is exactly why they want to win that prize. So, Brian, who's your tip for this race?
Oh, there's a bunch of good drivers here, but I'm looking at William Levesque. He's currently sitting P1 in this qualifying session, and he is second in the points at the moment. So I think I got to go with him as my pick, but you can never count out, of course, Brandon Hawken, who ended up in the points lead after last race.
Yeah, William Levesque could be a good call as we see our drivers putting in their first laps and already straight on the pace. We've also got, on top of our 30 drivers who have qualified for the privilege to take part in this event, we also have 3 wildcards in the series, one of which is a real-world racing driver. That is Daniel Morad in the number 7 car. And Daniel actually won the very prestigious Rolex 24 at Daytona back in 2017 at the wheel of an Allegra Motorsports Porsche 911 GT3R. If you like, the big brother of this 718 Cayman as well. So we also have number 41, Craig Anderson. And those of you who are NHL fans, you'll know that Craig is the goalkeeper of the Ottawa Senators, but he has joined us. He's a very keen sim racer and real world racer, and he is here to join us in the series. Have you seen Craig in action in his day job, Brian?
I have seen, and he is incredible. I give props to any goalie in the NHL, even if you are a bench goalie, because the amount of athleticism that you have to be a goalie, to move around in that goal, take the shots, even sometimes off of your mask, I would be terrified. So Craig Anderson is a beast in real life, and he's proven it here on the sim too.
He really has, and of course he joined us in the Canadian e-racing challenge, which we broadcast live on Apex Racing TV a month or 2 ago. The other 2 wildcard entries that we have is Yuri Tereshin and Jakub Robel, and you may be familiar with their YouTube channel, The Straight Pipes, where they review lots of different performance cars in many different types of Porsche as well. So you'll see them out on track as well. But what are so far in qualifying, after 6 minutes, we see the number 93 of Dam, 1 minute 57.698. Very impressive lap indeed from Mike Dam as he comes round the final corner here at Watkins Glen. Oh, and decides to go into pit lane. Now, this is a slightly different type of qualifying session to most iRacing competition, because normally as a driver you get the whole track to yourself and you go out and set a couple of qualifying laps and then the times are taken at the end. But this is a group qualifying session, so there is a lot more things at play here. You've got to make sure that you get an open space to set your lap time and not get caught up in traffic. But also, if you're smart, you can choose to follow a faster car and try to get a little bit of a tow along, both from aerodynamics, but also copying their braking points and turn-in points. So it'll be interesting to see, Brian, who wants to play those mind games perhaps in this 15-minute session.
Yeah, like you mentioned, there's so many straights here, along with even the S's, where you can get that draft during this open qualifying session. And it's really kind of making your own decision on, do you want to risk following someone and then possibly messing up, which would mess up your lap, and there's the benefit of getting that draft. Or you could go out there, run on your own, if you can find the space, and kind of just put in the laps that you want to put in. And that's really a decision that every person wants to do differently. There are some guys who are comfortable riding behind someone, and there are others who they want their own space. Anytime they're near someone else, they just are off their game. And in qualifying, you definitely don't want to be off your game.
So this is a very Canadian car we're looking on screen right now, the number 9. Of course, number 9 very much synonymous with the Pfaff Porsche group, and Pfaff, a huge name in Porsche retail in Canada, and also Porsche Motorsport. And this car just gone past on screen there, the number 9, is in the very eye-catching plaid pattern that Pfaff run on their car in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. And I have to say, it looks fantastic on this 718 GT4 edition as well. And in fact, Brian, I was at Daytona this year for the Rolex 24, and they even had matching overalls, which were made to look like denim dungarees with the plaid shirt on it as well. So nice to see a Pfaff car out there running the number 9.
Yeah, the just creativity that some of these cars have is amazing. Whether you have the Pfaff car, which is a classic, or even some of these other ones. I'm fairly sure we talked about that there is a goat on a car out there. I don't remember exactly which one, but these guys have put some time into these cars. They're showing off who they want and what they want, and just the amount of there it is, and the amount of just creativity that comes along with being a sim racer.
And I have managed to do some digging on that one, because last time the number 5 car of Giuliano Romagnuolo, we were wondering if that was a goat on that car. And I commentate on another series called the Racing Edge series, and Giuliano got on the podium, and I said, I must ask you, is that a goat on your car? And he says it is. So apparently he does a very good impression of a goat. So if he gets on the podium and we get him in for an interview, we'll have to ask him to do his GOAT impression. I basically said if he wins a race, he has to do the GOAT impression. So if you want that, get supporting him in the comments, and maybe push him on to a win so we can hear Giuliano's GOAT impression. Also, his Twitch stream, he talks a lot about goats on there, and his fans are referred to as the goats as well. Now, I'm a big motorcycle fan, Brian, and Colin Edwards, who was one of the best American MotoGP riders of the modern era, and he used to refer to Valentino Rossi as the GOAT. And of course, GOAT stands for GOAT, greatest of all time. Now, I know our producer, Marco, who is Italian, but is certainly not a fan of Valentino Rossi. He'll be very angry right now, but he's muted, so we can say what we like, Brian.
Yeah, no, most of the time when you have a reference to a goat in a picture or anything like that, it's referencing, like you mentioned, the greatest of all time. So to hear that story that it's more of because he makes a goat impression along with calls his chat the goats, that's a beautiful thing that, again, just shows off the creativity that a lot of these sim racers have when you go across the board. If any of them stream or anything like that, there's just so much creativity that goes into it. People know what they want, and it's just a beautiful thing to see people's minds get put onto the car.
So as we're seeing some of our drivers coming around what is known as the bus stop chicane of the back straight here at Watkins Glen. Now, that was put in 1975 because Watkins Glen, back in the 1960s and 70s, was basically the staple venue for the United States Formula One Grand Prix. And by the time it came round to 1975, the speeds were getting so high coming into the outer loop that the organisers felt that putting in a bus stop chicane to slow everything down was necessary, and I can understand as well because Porsche as a brand have such a amazing heritage in motorsport in so many different categories, and we'll talk about all that as we go through the broadcast. But one really cool Porsche that I certainly I love is the 91730, which was the car that Roger Penske ran with Mark Donoghue in the Can-Am series, and this car ran over 1,000 horsepower and weighed a lot less than a ton, so it was an incredible machine. And actually in 1973 came here to Watkins Glen and did the double victory. So no wonder they had to put that bus stop in there, Brian.
Yeah, the bus stop is one of the most treacherous places, especially in any car, because you go in there when you're nose to tail with another car. Everyone has that different breaking point, and of course, me being American over here, I have more experience with NASCAR running on this track than anything, and seeing them without any taillights or anything like that go into the bus stop is just incredible. And then to see some of these IMSA cars and these Porsches here doing the same thing, and they're able to go in there so much faster than any of the stock cars, of course. These things carry so much speed and have so much grip that getting into an area like the bus stop where it's all about carrying that momentum is just, it's such a beautiful sight.
Yeah, I have to say that the skill of threading a NASCAR Cup car through there must be just, well, it just boggles the mind, doesn't it? I once heard a chap called Andy Lally, who has won here at Watkins Glen on many occasions, and most of which at the wheel of a Porsche 911 GT3. And he used to drive in the Cup Series back in 2011. He drove in NASCAR, and he said driving in NASCAR is a bit like driving a speedboat with a space shuttle engine. Very difficult to control, but an art form nonetheless. Now, speaking of cars, we should talk about the 718 GT4 Cayman, which every single member of our field will be driving. It's exactly the same car for everyone, and this is a wonderful piece of kit built to global GT4 regulations and using a mid-engined, as is typical with the 718, mid-engined 3.8 litre normally aspirated straight six engine, and it sounds very much typically Porsche, and we see a lot of these cars out in GT4 America and also in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. Now, we're getting towards the end of qualifying, Brian, and I tell you what, I'm going to ask you to do my lottery numbers this week because Levesque, he's on top after you tipped him.
Yeah, I got worried a little bit there because the moment that I said his name last time, he just started dropping down the standings. So I got worried that there was a little bit of commentator's curse there. But luckily, he was able to bring it back, put down a really fast lap with that 157.37, which is actually tied with Brandon Hawkins. So they are almost exactly the same. Oh, he actually had a 157.31. Sorry, excuse me. He just laid that down. So yeah, these guys are fast right now, and if you go down the field, you don't drop out of the 157s until 14th position, and he ran a 158 exactly. So, and that's Evan Liburd. So these guys are all really fast, and if you make a mistake here, you are going to drop down that standings.
Yeah, you're spot on, Brian. And I wondered if we would see a repeat of what we saw at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park 2 weeks ago, where we saw the whole field covered by 1 second in qualifying. Well, it looks like we've got pretty much the same this week. You know, the top 23 all covered by a second, and the top 10 covered by under half a second. So that is that. If you want to see an example of how much quality we have in the field here. Well, there you have it. As we get our checkered flag now, I believe the checkered flagman, the flagman in iRacing, has a name. Can you? I can't. I can't remember what his name is, Brian.
I can't quite remember either at the
Oh,
moment.
someone will tell us in the chat, I'm sure.
Yeah, I know it's become a big thing at this point, as some saw that there was the Firecracker 400 that happened last night, and they actually had a camera for him. So I can't quite remember his name, but he's definitely become a big focal point while there was the whole quarantine going on.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll call him Hurley. We'll name him after Hurley Haywood, who started 48 races here at Watkins Glen, and most of those were at the wheel of a Porsche. So we'll call him Hurley for now until he's christened otherwise. Oh look! What? Goodness me! Well, Mr. Hawkin, number 99, Brandon Hawkin, our race 1 winner. He's not one to be outdone. He pips Levesque by 100th of a second. Goodness me, Brian. He's obviously listening to our broadcast and thought he would like to prove you wrong.
On his last lap, the last possible chance to do it, he jumps Levesque to take that pole position away, and he is proving that he wants that track day from Porsche, and he's going to do whatever it takes to get it.
So we'll wait for our cars to grid up for the race here at Watkins Glen, one of the proper old school venues here in North America. And I have to say, the calendar of 4 races that Porsche Canada have chosen for this series are fantastic. As I say, we've had Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, or Mosport, as a lot of people remember it as. Watkins Glen, a member off the Lime Rock Park in 2 weeks' time, and then we'll finish in Montreal on the streets there. So 4 really, four quite different tracks, and particularly Montreal, a real challenge. Oh, as we see, fittingly, we've got our Porsche 911 safety car ready to lead the field round for the pace lap. We'll see our grid coming up. Take us through it, Brian.
So starting on pole, as we mentioned, is Brandon Hawkin. In second is William Levesque. Third is Ian Gagnon-Renaud. Fourth is James Walker. Fifth is Mike Dam. Sixth is Alex Ellis. Seventh, Mac Corrins. Eighth is James David. Ninth is Eric Bourdois. 10 is Nelson Mason. 11th is Giovanni Romano. 12th is Jake Thompson. In 13th, we have Nathan Bartley. 14th is Corey Whiteman. 15th is Evan Lean. 16th is Brody Gobble. 17th is Giuliano Romagnolial. Sorry about that. 18th is Chris Trickett. 19th is Tony Klusterman. 20, Dmitry Malkov. 21st, Stephen Workup. 22nd is Richard Hibbs. 23rd is Oliver Bedard. 24th is Sebastian Ianita. 21st, sorry about that, lost my spot. And then we have in 25th is Chris Bisson. 26th, Jordan Dion Gilbert. 27th, Brian Carey. 28th, Sam Fellows. 29th is Craig Anderson. 30th is Jacob Robel. 31st is Alex De Silva.
Well done, Brian. That was there you go. It's always a mouthful reading out the grid. So we see Brandon Hawkin ready to lead away with our Porsche 911 safety car to take us round. So talk a little bit more about this 718 Cayman GT4. This is a car that you could go and buy from your Porsche dealer, and in fact, this is what is referred to as a customer racing car. And Porsche, throughout their motor racing history, have always excelled on providing cars that you as a customer could go and buy and then take to the racetrack. And that now basically moves across in iRacing. Of course, you can come in and buy your Porsche 718 GT4 for $12 and go iRacing with it. So this car, as I say, it's mid-engined, 3.8 litre, 425 horsepower. Now, interestingly, because it takes a lot of components from the road car, it's actually only 100 kilograms lighter than the road car that it's based upon. But it has one thing that keeps it completely unique from any other racing car in the world. It's actually the first ever production race car to feature body parts made of natural fiber composite material. So hopefully we won't see any big incidents today, Brian, but if any drivers do lose bits of bodywork, they know that at least that bodywork will be replaced in an eco-friendly manner.
Yeah, I think the main areas that we can look to possibly see some incidents is, of course, turn one. That's typically only on that first lap, though. Then you have the bus stop, which is another big, it's a heavy braking area. And then typically the inner loop or the boot, as most call it, are areas that can get tricky because you're so tight there and with the braking that's happening. So those are the main areas where I look for something to possibly happen with these cars.
Yep, and now of course where our drivers, you'll see a good onboard shot here. You'll see the gear shifter. Now, if you're a Porsche owner, you'll see that gear shifter looks very familiar, and that is because that is exactly the same gear shifter that you would get in a road-going version of this 718 GT4. And that is because most cars in the GT4 category are much more focused towards the road equivalent. So that is a PDK 6-speed gearbox that you would get in your Porsche road car as well. But there's a lot of other really sophisticated things. This uses actually uses the front brakes from the 911 GT3 as well. So it's got plenty of stopping power and, like I say, 425 horsepower. So not short of ponies. Also, anti-lock brakes as standard and traction control. So these cars are relatively friendly to take around the track, but very, very tricky to get lots of pace out of. And that's why you need a field as high quality as this to do that as we head round the final part of the inner loop.
Yeah, I can't wait to get this thing going green here as we're coming out back onto the main area there. And once we get these things going, it's going to be fun to see how these guys manage to get through turn one without any contact. It's these guys are great, but it's so hard to make turn one happen perfectly.
You are spot on, so watch it, folks, as we come around the final bend. Our Porsche 911 safety car is about to pull in, and we will be go here at the Glen for the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada as Brandon Hawkin holds onto our field. Hurley, the flagman, throws the green flag, and we are go here at Watkins Glen as they tumble down 90 corner, turn one. Let's see if they can get through safely, Brian.
Yeah, there were a gaggle of cars as you see them all spread out. It looks like we actually made it all the way through. They were 3 and almost 4 wide back there as they took that turn, and we see William Levesque actually has jumped up to the top position through the first turn.
Yeah, it's a very brave move, getting it started at the 90 and then making it count through the S's, which is a really difficult move to make stick, especially on the first lap when the tyres are cold, as they float through the bus stop in single file as they make their way through to the outer loop. A very, very tricky corner again on cold tyres. You're walking along the tightrope of grip as we head down towards a corner called the Chute, back down a couple of gears, having to drive defensive there. This can be a hot spot for overtaking as well, as we see the 9 Faf car of Corey Whiteman going up the inside with Giuliano Romagnuolo. The goal, who was that turned round? That is, I can't quite get the number.
That was Nelson Mason. Nelson Mason.
Oh, and the number 12 car of Chris Trickett as well has got spun round. Well, we said it was a real hot spot for action. So, William Levesque, our second place qualifier, he hits the front then. What is Brandon Hawkin going to do? Is he going to snap straight back, Troy Bayliss style, or is he going to let it go calm? I tell you what's not calm is this bunch here. They're about 3 or 4 wide. Oh, as Giuliano Romagnuolo gets into the side of the 35 of Sam Fellows, and as they head up towards coming out of the heel, it's all happening here, Brian.
Yeah, and then we see contact there between 3 of the cars. I almost said that these guys may have taken those 2 weeks to learn that you can't push too hard on the start, but as we've seen, that is not the case, as we see how the 25 of Nelson Mason ended up losing it there. It looked like he just lost it on his own, which is easy to do in that area if you just touch the brakes too much or turn the car a little bit too much. But back up to the lead now. We have Levesque and Hawkins going at it right now as they're heading up through the S's.
So the one thing about these little 718 GT4s is that they make a lot. They don't have an enormous amount of aerodynamics. They make most of their grip from mechanical forms through the suspension and chassis, etc. So actually, they don't actually give much of an aerodynamic tow to the car behind. So it is quite difficult to overtake, particularly at the front. So, but look at Hawkins and Levesque. They're already making a little bit of an edge away from the field. We saw them have the standout pace in qualifying and practice too. So be interesting to see if they make a breakaway.
Yeah, I think one thing that we learned last time is it is very easy to, through this whole 45 minutes, to make that mistake and to take the lead here and run away with it. You have to be consistent. And Levesque had some issues last time and made a couple mistakes that allowed Hawkins to get past him and then pull away a little bit. So Levesque's probably looking to clean that up and try to not make those same mistakes this time.
Correct, Brian. Yeah, he made a few mistakes at Moss Corner, which really cost him the victory. Now, I have to say that 00 car looks fun. Oh no, it's the number 25 of Nelson Mason. He's had another crash. Oh dear, let's see if we can get a replay of this. Thank you, Marco. As he's heading down towards the toe of the boot, hard on the brakes there. Maybe gets it in a little bit hot, tries to correct it. I think he's maybe nursing. Yeah, he's got quite a lot of damage on the front of that car, so he's maybe just nursing a little bit of steering damage, perhaps. But look at this, Hawkins. Is he going to make a move as Levesque sets the fastest lap of the race, and then quickly eclipsed by Hawkins, and then the number 23 car of Ian Gagnon Renault as well. So he's not done yet as well with the very patriotic. Of course, we had Canada Day a couple of days ago as well, didn't he? With the maple leaf there on the side of the car.
Yeah, and he's not looking to let them get away up there. These guys are going to battle it out for the entire 45 minutes, as we've seen. So they are going to put pressure on one another and see who's got that perseverance to not make those mistakes and be able to run consistently here. And some of these guys in the back are not going to make it easy for anyone either, just because they're running back here, as we saw them 3 and 4 wide at the start, and that's going to continue for most of the race also.
Looking at Sam Fellows on screen, leading a big pack behind him. He's got Craig Anderson behind him. So, as we look at that, the number 9, Corey Whiteman, in the Fast Porsche, getting past the 00 of Evan Leon. I have to say that car of Evan Leon's, that red with gold wheels. We talked about it last week about my kind of sad hobby that I have going on to the configurator. That's exactly how I would spec my GT4 Cayman if I were to be in the market for one. But I believe that Corey Whiteman actually works as a technician with Fast Porsche and is also a world-renowned crew chief in the radio-controlled car racing world.
Yeah, these guys have a lot. Most of them have a motorsports background, and most of them have some sort of racing experience to jump into this. Some don't. Some are just sim racers, but the amount of experience that some of these guys have is just amazing.
Dear, Nelson Mason in the 25 there, making the mistake that every racer's done but never wants to admit to, coming out of pit lane and just puts the gas on and round he went into the wall. So it's not been a good start for Nelson Mason, but let's see if he can recover. We've all done it. Even the very best in the world have done it. So back at the front, it's William Levesque just stretching a little bit of an advantage, 0.4 of a second, but that's what 0.4 of a second looks like. Not very much at all, with the others really trying to keep Gagnon Renault and Ellis really trying to hang on to the back, and Matt Corrins there in 5th position as we go through the bus stop. So lap 4, 6 minutes and 45 seconds gone of our 45-minute race. So plenty time to go, and our drivers at the front taking it pretty steady so far, just trying to get the measure of the drivers around them. I always find, Brian, it's good to get an idea of who the good boys are and who the bad boys are around you, know how to react around them. Oh, as we say, who's that who's gone off? I can't quite tell. Is that Craig Anderson who's gone off at the bus stop?
I believe it is, and we'll see what exactly. Oh, and he just hits one of those strips and gets unsettles the car enough that he just ends up spinning it out through the bus stop. That's a common accident to happen, especially for some maybe guys who don't have quite the experience going through there. I know I've done that quite a few times myself, where you can just hit one of those and it just makes the car bounce, and then you just lose all traction.
You do indeed. That's a good view on board there, the replay from Olivier Bedard's car, and it kind of got checked up, and all the group following behind him kind of got involved in that accident as well. That's the thing with the bus stop. It's such a hot spot for action, and you don't have to make a mistake to get to have your race ended there. It's a really, really difficult spot, and because of course you've that's the FAF car, number 9 of Corey Whiteman. Oh dear. Now, is he going to go into pit lane to take a fast repair? No, he isn't. Let's get another replay of that. Thank you, Marco. So, number 9, the FAF car is right behind the 00 of Lien. Oh, yes. Gets onto the grass on the brakes and just get turned around. The traction control system of his 718 GT4 desperately trying to catch it, but these systems, as brilliant as they are, they have their limitations.
Yeah, and that grass, especially on the brakes in the grass, you lose all traction in almost any car that you're in. And the Porsches are amazing about trying to keep that traction control, but at that point, it was just grasping at straws, trying to keep that thing straight. And so the moment he got on there, got on the brakes, that thing was coming around.
Yeah, to give. Oh my goodness me! Big wreck there, big wreck. That's the 13 of Chris Bisson and the 96 of Olivier Bedard. That looked like a little bit of toing and froing there as they come in. So Bedard goes up the inside of Bisson, and kind of moves him out onto the grass a little bit, gives him no room at all. And yep, that's what'll happen. Not a bit of an unnecessary incident there, Brian. Would you say?
Yeah, the biggest thing is when someone pushes off there, you technically do not have to let them back on before the grass, but etiquette would teach you that you can't really run them on the grass, because what's going to happen is what just happened. He has to get back on the track, and he's going to come up, so you have that room on the outside to give him. It's better to give that than risk that happening.
So a little bit of an update for our championship runners. Of course, Brandon Hawken, our race 1 winner 2 weeks ago, sitting in second position right now with William Levesque, who was... who's that gone off? I can't quite tell. They've taken the wing off the back of their GT4.
That is the 15 of Richard
15
Hibbs.
of Richard Hibbs. Now, his GT4 now looks a bit more like a GTS 4-litre now, because he's taken the big rear wing off. With the new damage model here on iRacing. So round he comes in that very pretty looking car, a nice white and blue livery there. Yep, the grass again. That grass is just lethal. To give an idea, coming back to the accident that the FAF car of Corey Whiteman had, if you can imagine, if you've ever hit the brakes when driving on ice or driving on snow, and that sort of feeling of complete loss of control, it's pretty much the same as that when you brake on the grass here on iRacing, or in any real racetrack for that matter. So yes, back to our championship runners. Brandon Hawken, who's currently leading the championship, sitting in second, with William Levesque, who's currently second in the championship, leading this race. Now, you have to look back to 6th position for the number 93 of Mike Dam, who is our 3rd place sitter in the championship right now. So he's keeping his nose clean and in line to grab a good bag of points.
Yeah, you can win 3 races, but have 1 bad race, and you end up losing the championship here. So one of the biggest things is just running consistent for all 4 events that we end up having, because, like I said, he could run in the 5th position in every race, and say one person wins 3 of the races and wrecks out of the last one, and all of a sudden he's in that better position to win the championship at that point.
So this is a fantastic battle between Alex Ellis and Ian Gano-Renault. Absolutely fantastic as we head around the final bend, a really tricky corner there, and you've got to get on the gas as early as you possibly can. Brilliant racing, of course. You can tell this is a sprint race, Brian. Not normally what Watkins Glen is known for in sports cars is, Gano-Renault goes defensive and then moves across. That's a wee bit naughty, actually, to do that, to move under braking. Alex Ellis will not be very impressed at all with that as he of Gano Renault, and I've just lost my feed ever so slightly. But they managed to get through at the S's. The S's is such a problem area as well, because sometimes you see two cars trying to go side by side there, and it does not work at all. Now, I wonder, are they going to make it? Oh, look, Brandon Hawken making a move for the lead on the brakes into the bus stop, and Levesque very cleverly just lets him go. If he'd contested that, that could have ended up in a big pile-up, but Brandon Hawken hits the front.
Yeah, it's one of those things where at some point you got to make the decision on, are you going to let the person by and maybe burn up their tires a little bit, or are you going to continue to push it in front of them with them pressuring you? So it might have been a smarter decision at this point to just let him go, maybe burn his stuff up. As long as you can stay with him, you might actually save some tires running behind him.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on there. There's sometimes it might seem a little bit kind of anti-racing, if you like, to say, oh, why would you just let somebody through? Sometimes it's very much in your interest. We saw here at Watkins Glen in the IMSA iRacing Challenge, we saw very popular YouTuber Jimmy Broadbent getting into an accident there with Biecki Visser, the W Series driver. They're both in the new BMW M4 and having an accident there, basically doing the opposite of what Hawkins and Levesque did there, driving with good respect. So, well, this is, I just don't know where to look, Brian. It's all happening. We see Craig Anderson there being lapped by the two leaders after his little off-track excursion, but everyone's sort of piling up behind Gano Renault. Of course, that little side-by-side moment will have slowed them up slightly, and for the number 93 of Mike Dam, he would probably be wanting to make his way to the front of this group before too long.
Yeah, and I'm starting to think that Ellis might actually start running out of patience with Gagnon Renaud. We've seen multiple times where Gagnon Renaud has got very defensive, even under braking. So eventually Ellis, seeing these people pile up behind him and trying to make a pass on him, as we've seen headlights flickering behind, he's going to start running out of patience if this continues to happen.
Well, I have to say, it's a good job that these 718 GT4s are compact cars, because they're going too wide through the S's, and that is always a recipe for disaster here at Watkins Glen. And oh, too wide through the bus stop. Look at this. This is incredible. This is absolutely extraordinary. We say you can't go too wide through there. Well, they've proven me wrong once more, Brian. Fantastic. I tell you what, if you tried to do that in a NASCAR Cup car, that wouldn't end up so well.
Yeah, no, it definitely wouldn't. These guys are putting on a show for us here in the Canadian Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge, and it's such a beautiful sight. You saw them going too wide to the bus stop, and these guys being defensive right now and having patience with one another. Like I said, don't know how long it'll last, but the racing we've got to see from them is absolutely amazing, and that's why they're the best of the Canadian drivers right now.
Yeah, I have to say now, for our, it's not just the series champion that wins prizes as well. The person who finishes second in the championship wins a 911 Bluetooth speaker, a Porsche Motorsport jacket and bag, and 75 iRacing credits. But I'm looking at third place, Brian. For third place, you get to win a Martini Racing Thermos, and I have to say, I want one of those, a Martini Racing Thermos.
Yeah, they have rewards all the way throughout the field, and that's another great thing that Porsche has done by sponsoring this series. It shows the amount that they want to put into sim racing, into the series, and it just shows how great it is and why Porsche is such a great company, being able to go through and do this for these sim racers.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Brian. You know, sim racing has obviously really come into the spotlight in the last couple of months with the kind of widespread global lockdown, with people stuck at home. But actually, this commitment to sim racing has been long-standing from Porsche. Porsche's entire history is just intertwined with motorsport. You know, from the early Porsche 550, the 356 Spider, and actually the first ever time that Porsche won the 12 Hours of Sebring, it was actually in the original 718, and that's where these cars get their name from. The 718 RS60 that won the 1961 12 Hours of Sebring, as we see the number 9 of Corey Whiteman going defensive there. So yeah, intertwined with motorsport and customer motorsport. It's not just always the works team doing all the stuff. Most racing Porsches could be bought from the factory, driven on a key, and run successfully by customer teams. And Martini Porsche, of course, we talked about the Martini Porsche Thermos flask there. Martini Porsche obviously play a huge, that Martini brand plays a huge kind of part in the history of Porsche motorsport. And actually, in 1977, Porsche held the first 12 places in the Watkins Glen 6 Hour, with the Martini Porsche 935 of Jochen Mass and Jackie X taking the win.
Yeah, and while we were talking about that, Alex Ellis actually has got around Ian Gagnon Renaud here. He hasn't been able to pull away exactly, but he did make the pass, as we see here. So he's finally around him. We'll see what he can do now. And Mike Dam is up to the 5th position now. So we saw a lapped car actually coming into play there, it looks like, and helping out Ellis actually make that decision. So I'm sure Gagnon Renaud is not happy about that.
I think that might have been Craig Anderson. So I think he used his goalkeeper there to block to block Gagnon Renaud. Just it didn't. That is not normally a place you would go on in that left hander after the heel of the boot. But he really made a nice cheeky move. And when you get lap traffic, it's sometimes you can really use it to your advantage. But you're absolutely spot on. Gagnon Renaud is not finished. And look at the draft he's in here. He's creeping away, but decides just to sit behind. Does he? Oh, go through the bus stop. This is getting very, very close indeed. But good respect from both drivers here. But I tell you what, Brian, I don't know. Do you think Ellis has got the pace to break away here?
I'm not sure exactly. They're running about the same times, and they were beforehand, so we'll have to see exactly what happens. But lurking right behind Gagnon Renaud is Mike Dam, and I saw him peek out a couple times. I know he wants to get in front of these two and start pulling away and try to maybe catch the front guys. I don't know if he can, but there's plenty of time left, so it is possible. So I'm sure he wants to get past these guys as quick as possible.
I have to say, I like these door numbers on the side with the resplendent in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada, of course, live here on the iRacing Esports network with over 40,000 subscribers. Who would have thought we'd be speaking to 40,000 subscribers, Brian? But this is no wonder, because this racing is just superb. And normally, if you take part in your kind of early races in your iRacing career, sometimes it can be a bit of a punch-up, but at this level, it just shows you the standard and the quality of drivers that you have, not just in Canada, but all around the world.
Yeah, I did a race earlier in the MX-5s, and not a single car made it through without an incident point. So these guys are truly showing that what it means to race at the top level of sim racing here in the Canada Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge, and they are just putting on a show for us. They are as close as can be here, as we saw that on board there, the looking back at Mike Dam. That is a beautiful shot. So it's just incredible how close these guys are racing and how they're giving each other respect to make it such a great race.
That got so close there that I could see the kind of imprint on the on the front bumper that said GT4MR. So you got so close you could see the kind of bodywork there. There you go. You can just about see it on the bottom of the black bumper of Mike Dam. And of course, MR stands for Manthey Racing, which are one of the customer teams who are very closely affiliated with Porsche Motorsport and run the Porsche 911 RSRs in the World Endurance Championship, and also at the devious Nürburgring 24 Hours, which they've won 7 times.
Yeah, and we see them almost side by side there. What that's going to allow them to do if they get side by side is Ellis will be able to pull away a little bit. So Ellis would love for them to start racing each other behind him. And looking back up front also, Levesque has pulled back in Hawkins. At one point, that was almost a second lead for Hawkins, but Levesque has pulled it back in now, and he's going to be right there staying with him. If he can keep that pace, we may be in for a spectacle of a finish.
I really think we are, Brian, for sure. I mean, 0.3 of a second might sound a lot, but it really isn't. With these cars, look at that. Hardly any distance at all. Maybe 1 car length at the most. As we see, oh, this is a jazzy new graphic we've got here on the bottom right of your screen, showing the gap progression as well, thanks to our producer, Marco. So, Hawkins goes defensive slightly there in the number 99, looking very smooth, though. With the 144 of Levesque, and look, they've pulled out, goodness me, over 5.5 seconds, and to be honest, in a field as closely competed as this. It's just extraordinary that they've been able to break away so much, particularly given that they've swapped position already. So need to see what Levesque does. What's his strategy going to be? Is he hanging on by his fingertips, or is he sitting there comfortably? Of course, it's very hard for us to tell here in the commentary box.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe Levesque has changed his strategy a bit. We saw last time that he was out front, he wanted to be out front, he was pushing as hard as he could, and that's when the mistakes happen. Maybe he's decided that this time he's okay and comfortable with running in that second position, just following Hawken around for now, saving tires, running at his pace, and then towards the end, we'll maybe take that push to go for the lead.
So we see on screen the number 9 Porsche. Oh, he's gone off screen again. Never mind. The number 20. So this is back towards this battle for the last place on the podium. Now these points could just be critical towards the end of the championship. As our championship leader sitting on 100 points right now, with William Levesque sitting on 97 points in second. So a dropped score is really, really punishing with that amount of points on offer for a win. So, it's just impossible to call here. For Mike Dam, who we're running on board with now, he's third in the championship in the number 93 car. Well, for him, he's been the one who's had to work the least hard. He's just been able to sit behind these guys. Oh, he definitely a touch there. That 100% that was a touch there to the number 23, but both drivers not being perturbed as, oh my goodness me, what's happened here? So look at that, Mike Dam moves to the left, and hopefully will he be able to make it on the brakes here? He has. So Gagnon Renault goes back to 5th position.
Yeah, eventually your patience runs thin, and they were in line for so long, and them racing like that has actually probably been why the leaders have been able to pull away as far as they have. So when you're racing that close in a line, and you know that you're faster than the guy in front of you, you can ride there for a little bit, but if they're not going to give you any room, and we saw that Gagnon Renaud was running very defensively, that eventually you're going to just decide that you've had enough and you're going to push the issue, as we saw that what Mike Dam did.
And also look at Matt Corrins in the Ronin Simsport car and that nice white and black paint scheme. He's in that pack as well. He's an outside shot for the podium too, as we see Corey Whiteman in the number 9 Pfaff Porsche with the Motul livery on the side as well. Brilliant looking car, I have to say, with Dion Gilbert behind him in 16th position, as we see number 12, the 12th position car of Thompson going past Lien in that wonderful red and black car with the gold wheels in the 00 car. So it's all happening, but right up front, absolutely no change at all for our leaders. Still only 4/10, just coming up to 5/10 of a second between those guys. But this pack fighting for third place, any of the guys in this pack could make a move here. But Mike Dam, he's just making his way to the front of the group, knowing that he can just bag those few more championship points. But Alex Ellis isn't going to let him have it easy.
No, he's not. He's going to make it very hard. And Alex Ellis is sitting 7th in the championship right now with 84 points. So he's only 10 points below Mike Dam. So he's going to try and finish ahead of him to get any extra points that he can. And I'm sure these guys have been looking at that points and knowing who they need to finish ahead of and what they need to do. Because with only 4 races in the series, you have to know, because every point matters. So I'm sure these guys have looked, they know, and I'm sure that's partly of how these guys are racing one another.
I'll tell you what, coming down the front straight there over the stripe, that was getting very spicy indeed between a 23 of Gagnon Renault and Matt Corrins in the 42 car. Now look at this, it's happening again as we head down the next straight, down the back straight now, heading into the bus stop, and I think we're going to see a big move here from Corrins. Corrins really driving quite aggressively, and Gagnon Renault matching it really up front with some really tough defence too, and that's for Corrins. That must be frustrating, knowing that he's got the pace of the 93 of Dam and perhaps even the 3 of Ellis, but he just cannot get past that pesky white and red car of Gagnon Renault.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things. As we saw Mike Dam, he was riding behind Gagnon Renaud for so long, and he knew he had that pace to get past him. But Gagnon Renaud has been running defensively almost the entire race. So his strategy is working for him. He's been able to hold position, but he has to be careful. If he does that too much, then if a driver runs out of patience, then you could see him accidentally getting turned.
Well, look at that. We're certainly getting a look, very close look at the number 93 of Mike Dam. Has Ellis gone ever so slightly wide? No, he hasn't. Ellis defending very well there and very cleanly as well. But one snake of cars, Ellis, followed by Mike Dam with Gano Renault right there. Matt Corrins dropped back into the clutches of the number 97 car of James Walker, who's just sitting there. And with all, as you say, Brian, with all these cars battling away with each other, that's allowing Walker to catch up.
Yeah, that almost looked like something you would see at Daytona or Talladega in a stock car there. Yeah, Mike Dam was almost pushing Alex Ellis down the straightaway and across the line into turn one. That's something you don't often see. I was looking to see him maybe pull out and try to make the move into the braking zone, but he held his line, and so it's interesting to see where he's gonna where he thinks that he can make the pass better than in turn one.
Here he goes. I think he might have a look here into the bus stop. Does he? No, he thinks better of it. I tell you what, you've got to have an enormous advantage to try and make that move stick at the bus stop, and you've also got to have a pretty compromising dancing partner in the car that you're overtaking. Otherwise, it ends up in the sand trap. But here we are at the front in their own race altogether. Hawkins and Levesque side by side. Really, really close here. We've only got 17 minutes left of this race, so the clock is ticking, and Levesque, he's right on the bumper of Hawkins, but look at that, not a mark on either of those cars, so they're racing hard but racing clean, and that's exactly what we all want to see.
Yeah, and again, I just continue to think that Levesque is maybe just biding his time. We knew Hawkins had the pull in the for qualifying, but Levesque just seems to have a lot of control and patience right now riding back there. We see him get runs and he just kind of backs it off. And so I think Levesque is just kind of waiting his time out, watching that time tick away and thinking that maybe he doesn't want to give Hawken that advantage of having that draft when it comes towards the end of this race.
Yeah, that's that game of chess at high speed, isn't it? And sometimes you don't want to lead into the last lap, but here you probably do. It just depends very much on the car and the circuit layout, because sometimes you want to be following and then get the draft on the last lap and make your move. As they head into the 90, this is such a crucial corner, the 90. Turn one, it's crucial for two reasons. One is that it sets you up for speed all the way down all the way through the S's, down the back straight towards the bus stop, and if you get it right, you get the advantage all the way down. As we see Hawken having to go slightly defensive there to keep Levesque behind him, so it's heating up there at the front. As we see Mike Dam take another look up the inside, probably just a bit of intimidation tactics there for Alex Ellis. It's been running really, really close, but also the 90 turn one is very important because there is a chance to make a block pass down there on the brakes.
Yeah, and as we saw there with the bus stop especially, a lot of times people will peek out just to intimidate the driver in front of you, because sometimes you can see that driver peeking out there and it'll cause the driver in front to just go too hard into it and overdrive the corner, which would then allow the car behind to get that better exit. So it really is just sometimes a tactic to basically scare them rather than actually try to make that pass.
Well, I'm glad you've owned up to doing that tactic, Brian, because I have to say I quite cheekily do that quite a lot myself in iRacing. When I do get the opportunity to try and make an overtake on someone, I do like sitting on their rear quarter just to sort of spook them a little bit. But a bit naughty, but that's race car driving, I suppose. So we're looking at the 337 of Giovanni Romano in that lovely yellow and blue HJ Motorsport machine. Now, oh goodness me, we're looking at now the very second-hand looking front bumper. Oh, and oh God, was that contact there? It looked awfully like it. Contact between Mike Dam and Alex Ellis, as Alex Ellis has to go defensive straight away. Now Mike Dam is on very much the the unpreferred line here, as we see the 23 of Gano Renault waiting for something to happen here. Mike Dam goes hard on the brakes. Can you go around the outside there? It'd be the first time, but Alex Ellis is able to hold it out, and this might compromise. We just talked about it. The exit from the 90, it's very important, and look, he's now got Gano Renault and Corrins right on his case now.
Yeah, that was the case of where we saw. I definitely think there was contact there. I think Mike Dam is running a little bit out of patience with Ellis and all the defensive driving that's happening. But along with that, when you do that, though, and you try to drive around the outside or an unconventional line, you sacrifice speed a lot of the times. It's very hard to actually make a pass there. Most of the time, it's actually done to keep from initiating contact. Because if he tried to ride behind him there, someone would have ended up getting turned or he would have got passed. So he did that probably more as a defensive measure on his own after the defensive driving from Ellis.
Yeah, you're spot on there, Brian. And the thing with these GT4 cars, or any GT4 car, of course, there's many different types of GT4 manufacturer that you can choose. Although I would say you've got to choose the little 718. It's a brilliant GT4 car. So we see track temperature up to 36 degrees centigrade. Very, very hot track temperature. So that'll be getting pretty slick as we head towards the latter stages of the race. By the time we get to 45 minutes, these Michelin tyres are going to be pretty second hand. But yeah, coming back to, as we see Hawkins and Levesque very close. Coming back to your point, Brian, about that losing that speed on the outside line, you're absolutely right. And it's particularly poignant for any GT4 car, because they do have quite a lot less power than, say, a GTE car, which has nearly 500 horsepower in most cases. And you really have to keep the momentum up and keep your corner speed up, because they don't have the ultimate horsepower really to kind of grunt out of the corner. So if you do get compromised on entry or exit, it really hurts.
Yeah, that's one of the big things. As we saw Nathan Bartley there make a very good pass on Giovanni Romano, just coming up the inside, nice and clean. And that's what you love to see, these guys just taking it hard and taking advantage of others' mistakes. And I still think that's what Levesque is doing there, is we see him right on the tail of Hawken, and we see Dam again on the inside there of Ellis. And this is going to get very hairy as this continues, because these guys are going to lose patience with one another.
Yeah, this has an air of inevitability about it, doesn't it, Brian? We're seeing excellent driving from all concerned, running at very, very close quarters. Now, his Dam has a look up the inside, but Gagno Renault's going to have another look as well. That doesn't fit, surely, but they all decide to back out of it at the very last moment. But they're all piling up behind Alex Ellis. But you have to take your hat off to Alex Ellis, who's defended. Oh, huge punt! That's got to be a. Oh, that's a. Matt, did you see that on your feed as well, Brian? That looked like it got right into the back of him.
Yeah, no, I saw that also. So definitely looked like it, but it does look like Mike Dam has cleared Ellis right now. So we'll see if Dam can pull away or if Ellis is actually looking to take another look here. Oh, and around goes the 23.
Well, there's commentator's curse. That was a predicted commentator's curse. We were both saying that it was bound to come to an end at some point, and well, there you have it. So let's get a replay of this. You got Gagno Renault in the 23 on the right hand side as they head into the chute, and oh, goodness me, it's straight into the side of Matt Corrins, and Matt Corrins actually really lucky not to get involved in that. And the 97 car of James Walker unfortunately caught up in that incident as well, and very unlucky to get caught up there as well. So all happening. That'll break up the pack quite a lot, Brian.
Oh yeah, it definitely does, as we saw there. One important thing there is that Corrins is sitting. I just had him in point. He's sitting 6th in points right now, so he's trying to make up some of those points also that we saw. So him running back there, he's trying to finish ahead of these guys that were behind him in points, and try and finish ahead of the guys that were ahead of him to make up those points on them to make that ground. So that could have played into that decision, because we only have less than 10 minutes in this race. So these guys are going to be pushing it harder than ever to make up as much ground as they can.
Yeah, we'll only have about 5 laps or so, depending on when our leaders go over the stripe, as we sit on lap 19 right now. So the tyres will be starting to get towards the end of their life. Now, one of these one of these 718 GT4 MR Caymans has a huge fuel, I mean, an enormous fuel tank. These cars will actually do an hour and a half on a tank, so they just go on forever. To give you an idea, a GT3 or GT Esports car will only do about an hour on a full tank, so they're certainly economical little things anyway, these GT4s. So it's still Hawkin at the front with Levesque right on his back bumper. I tell you what, Brian, you've got to feel sorry for the 97 of Walker there, who was keeping his nose clean and giving plenty of room and was just caught up in an accident, not his fault. And sometimes you can get involved in an accident and sort of escape it without too much fuss, but he was turned round and put in the sand, and he was almost flipped on his roof almost, and that has put him all the way back in 14th position. It's got to be gutting for him.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of times when incidents happen on road, you always tend to seem to find the areas where someone else makes a mistake and you get caught up in it. That's more often than not what ends up happening on iRacing, and we all want to blame this or that, but it's just something that happens as part of racing. It happens in the real world. It happens in sim, where sometimes just luck isn't on your side, and it's the same thing with league races or here in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge. Things just happen, and you just have to adapt. And that was not a situation where he could really adapt to anything with those close quarters.
Now, looking at the back of the Ronin Simsport car of Matt Corrins, that's had some plenty of paint traded along the side of it. As we see now, who's this looking to have a move past Matt Corrins? And Matt Corrins actually going backwards. I wonder if he's showed good pace. I wonder if he's maybe his car is maybe a little bit second hand after that incident, and it's maybe slowing him down, because he's been no problem sitting with that front group as the 89 of David goes past in his red, grey and black machine. Back at the front, it's closer than ever between Hawkins and Levesque. Levesque right on the back bumper again as they head through the heel of the boot. 6 minutes to go, so it's now or never. And well, what do you think, Brian? Where's he going to have a look? You know he's going to have a try to go for the win. Where do you think he's going to go for it?
I think it's either going to be in turn one, he might try to make the pass there. Unless Hawkins gets defensive, then you definitely do not want to try turn one, because as we saw, it doesn't work. You just lose too much momentum. The other areas I could see it potentially happening, of course, is the bus stop. And then really, I think if it's not, the pass isn't made by then, I think it's probably too late.
Yeah, so it's all about that. Oh my goodness me, Mike Dam's on his roof. Mike Dam is on the roof. His number 93 car, thankfully he's managed to get it off the track before the other cars came in front of him. What on earth happened to Mike Dam there? So he got past Ellis. So in all that melee, he managed to get to the front. What on earth happens here? Oh, he gets loose on the grass. He gets a little bit of a wiggle into the wall, into the barrier, and oh, kind of unceremoniously, the front hood's popped open. You can get a good couple of weeks shopping in the front there. Oh, what a shame for Mike Dam. Now remember, he came into this race third in the championship. Oh, it's just, honestly, that was inches of a mistake, a very small mistake, and the punishment did not fit the crime.
Yeah, that's, again, we talked about that grass and how it's just like ice. Especially, I've noticed at Watkins Glen, it's very easy to touch that grass in different areas, and just touching the brake at all, or even the gas sometimes, can just send that around. And then we had possibly the slowest rollover I've ever seen off of that wall.
Yeah, it was almost comically slow, and what a shame. You can imagine for him on board going, oh no, get back on the wheels, but unfortunately had to take a tow back to pit lane. Never mind, pity for Mike Dam in the number 93, but let's get a look on board, let's see what that's all about. So comes round the second to last corner, gets a little bump on the curb, on the grass, oh, it just snaps back into the wall, and then oh no! Oh, that sound will give you nightmares. It really will. Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, and especially where he was. If you just hope it rolls back onto those wheels so you can drive it into the pit yourself and save that tow time. But sadly, it didn't.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Brian. And if this were the real world, with these cars in the real world Porsche Sprint Challenge, now luckily again, something that's always been the case with Porsche Motorsports. And well, for 30 or 40 years, if you owned a Porsche customer racing car, you don't have to hold a stock of spare parts yourself. There's actually a truck that goes to every race with all the spare parts that you need. And I have to say, if this were a real world race, that truck, the queue at that truck would have been pretty long, I would imagine, queuing up for some new bumpers and wings and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, I can imagine. And this race at the front here is getting even more exciting. He's right there. Levesque has been there this entire time. It just comes down to the right opportunity here. But credit to Brandon Hawken. He has run consistent. He's put the laps in. He hasn't made a mistake to allow Levesque that opportunity. So it's really going to come down to Levesque taking an opportunity to make that clean pass, and I don't know where it could come from at this point because Hawken has just been so smooth.
You're absolutely right. Both drivers have not missed an apex, a break point, nothing. And you highlighted it earlier in the race, Brian, that Levesque, just a couple of mistakes from him really cost him very dearly in a Canadian Tire Motorsport Park 2 weeks ago. So both drivers, neither of which made a mistake, and it's kind of the who's going to blink first sort of thing. And I think you talk about a clean move. I don't know if with the level that these guys are operating on, is a clean move even possible? As we see Hawken just making an ever so slight move there through the back end of the circuit, just eking out a couple of car lengths. As we see, white flag. Hurley, our flagman, is going to throw out the white flag here. So this is the last lap, now or never, for William Levesque if he wants to win this race.
Yeah, we're going to end up seeing what happens here. There's racing going back here for third between Ellis and David. That's a big points battle because James David is down in the 25th position in points, looking for a big day in points and possibly even bigger if he gets that next position.
Yep, these are all vital points, only 4 rounds, and of course we're off to Lime Rock Park in 2 weeks' time. So Hawken looking very strong in the number 99 car. He's not put a foot wrong yet, but William Levesque is going to really push hard in his 144 machine as we go back down again. Ellis and David side by side now. How is this going to work? We know that side by side very rarely works coming into the bus stop, as we see David going round the outside on the brakes, and he'd think he's going to make it stick. He does. What a move there. Fantastic stuff to make that one work.
Yeah, and we got to wonder if Ellis is going to end up coming back, as again, we're back to this battle for the lead here going into the boot. Levesque is just looking for that opportunity right now, and I'm not sure Brandon Hawkins going to give it to him. Like I said, if the pass isn't made by the bus stop, I think it's Brandon Hawkins to have.
Yep, he's stretching a couple of car lengths here, a couple of really vital car lengths, just a couple of corners to go then for Hawken to claim his second win of 2 races of this Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada as they head to the second to last corner. Last chance then for William Levesque, but I don't think he's going to do it. I think Hawken has done enough as we head into the final corner. Is he going to take one last dive? Does he think better of it? Yes, he does. Hawken absolutely flawless, but you never know. Is he going to make a run to the line? They're coming side by side as Hawken flashes his lights as they head over the line. Checkered flag comes out, and that is your winner then. Number 99, Brandon Hawken. It's 2 in a row for Brandon Hawken as we see, Ellis gets loose there on that final corner, and David gets into the wall. It's all happening here. Who's going to get that final spot in the podium? It's the 89 of David with Matt Corrins coming through in the 42, recovering well after that incident, and Ellis finishing 5th after holding the 3rd position for so long. Let's get a look at this, Brian.
Yeah, and that's going to hurt a lot because Matt Corrins was ahead of Ellis in the points. So if Ellis would have been able to finish ahead, that would have been some extra points there to make up there on Corrins. But Corrins being able to get around just will stretch that lead out. And James David having such a great race here as we see them battling it out during this last lap. He's going to have a huge points day after being 25th in the points. And we see there Ellis got inside of him. So for James David to be able to pull this out here as they're coming up, and yeah, he just wasn't able to clear him on exit. And at that point, it's very hard to make a pass unless James David made a mistake.
It looks like Alex Ellis is going to... Oh, just a little wiggle there, just on the brakes, and that allows Matt Corrins to pick his pocket at the last possible moment. Well, I have to say, for Matt Corrins, he's going to get a big bag full of points and came into this race 6th in the championship, but Brody Goebel and Tony Klusterman in front of him not scoring many points at all. So Brandon Hawken, though, 2 wins from 2 races, and he sits at the top of the championship from William Levesque as we head towards Lime Rock Park. I'm going to take a very brief break here on Apex Racing TV and the iRacing Esports Network, and we'll be right back with some driver interviews. Well, race fans, welcome back to the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada live here on Apex Racing TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Well, Brian, what a race that was. Take us through the results of that barnstorming race.
So, of course, finishing in the first position is Brandon Hawken for the second time. In second, we have William Levesque. Third is James David. Fourth is Mac Corrins. Fifth is Alex Ellis. Sixth, Nathan Bartley. Seventh is Giovanni Romano. Eighth, Evan Lean. Ninth is Eric Bourdois. 10th is Jake Thompson. 11th, Ian Gagnon Renaud. 12th is James Walker. 13th is Stephen Workup. 14th is Jordan Dion Gilbert. 15th, Sebastian Ianita. 16th, Corey Whiteman. 17th, Dmitry Malkov. And 18th is Sam Fellows. Then we have in 19th is Brian Carey. 20th, Chris Trickett. 21st, Tony Klusterman. 22nd is Richard Hibbs. 23rd is Craig Anderson. 24th is Jacob Warble. 25th is Chris Bisson. 26th is Mike Dam. 27th is Oliver Bedard. 28th, Nelson Mason. 29th is Giuliano Romagnolo. 30th is Brody Gobble. 31st is Alex De Silva.
So there's all of our runners then, and I see that we have our race winner waiting to speak to us. Brandon Hawken has come to join us in the commentary box. Brandon Hawken, 2 wins in a row. How does that feel, sir?
Wait, guys, yeah, that was Man, that that was a really tough one. I thought last week was tough, but this was even tougher. Yeah, man, that's crazy to come home with the win. Yeah, William was he was super fast. He was really good on corner entry, and that's a place I wasn't good at. So yeah, I was just trying to hold him off there, and yeah, he raced me really clean. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm just super excited.
Yeah, no, not surprised. We certainly didn't see either of you make even close to a mistake through the whole broadcast. Was there any hairy moments at all, or was it straight out of the textbook for the whole race?
Pretty much every lap in the bus stop was was pretty hairy. It yeah, like it was really sketchy through there, so you had to be careful, but not too careful, or yeah, I think bad things could happen. So yeah, it was really tough through there, but yeah, it was just yeah, I'm pretty much speechless. That was that was great. And if there was one thing I would take back, I would take my turn one on the first lap back. But other than that, yeah, that was I was all right with that.
I think we can give you one corner in 45 minutes. That's a good report card to have. Now, I'm sure you've thought about it. So the winner of this series in this Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada gets to choose a driving experience on the track or off-road on ice and snow. Have you let yourself think which one you would prefer?
I think I prefer the track just because yeah, I've never driven on dirt before or snow or anything. So yeah, I think the track would be a little bit more comfortable for me. And plus that would be my first time driving a car on a track or anything. So yeah, I think I'll go with the one I'm a little bit more comfortable with.
Well, I wish you the very best of luck for the rest of the championship, and hopefully you'll get your chance to do that. Now
Thank you.
we're off to Lime Rock Park in a couple of weeks' time, which will be very exciting. Now, before we go there, while you're live on the iRacing Esports Network, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to on the broadcast?
Sure. Yeah, like to thank you guys for the broadcast, everybody watching, uh, Apex V2R and Porsche Motorsport Canada for setting this whole thing up. It's been a great experience so far. A lot of really good racing, and shout out to Will for that really clean race. That was so good, and yeah, just everybody that makes this thing possible.
Well, thank you very much, Brandon, and hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks' time at Lime Rock Park.
Thanks, guys.
So that was your winner, your two-time winner, Brandon Hawkin, joining us in the commentary box. We've also got our second place finisher, the other party in that amazing battle, William Levesque. He is with my esteemed colleague Brian Delp.
Hey, William, you had a great race there coming home in second in probably one of the two cleanest cars. How did you feel that race ended up going for you coming home second?
Well, first of all, hello guys. Um, yeah, well, qualifying was pretty good. I guess maybe I had 2 tenths on the table, but it's always pretty difficult to nail a lap. So I was fairly happy with my lap anyway, and Brandon, I'm sure he had some more on the table as well anyway. Um, but the start, I guess he slept a little bit in turn one. It was a bit too cautious. I didn't push that much, but when I saw that I had more than enough room to get in there, I decided to go for it. And after that, honestly, I just wanted to get away from the pack because I know me and him, I think we have a bit of an edge on the rest of the guys. So when Brandon had a run on me, I didn't fight it at all, uh, just so we could run away some more. And then, well, after that, it was just kind of just being there and waiting for a mistake because I couldn't quite get the proper move going. So in the end, I didn't have a good opportunity, so ended up second.
Was there an area coming towards those final laps where you thought that you might be able to get it done, or you were looking at possibly being the spot to make that pass?
Yeah, well, it was all about getting the proper run after turn one. But unfortunately for me, it was very, very strong out of the last corner. So it would always make a little bit of a gap on me there, which in turn would lower the draft after turn 1. So it was really hard to really get the car in position. I was stronger, I think, in a lot of the corner entries, but you couldn't really do anything with that. So
Now, we are going to Lime Rock Park next, and you're second in the points, so I'm sure you want to start getting those wins. How are you feeling heading into Lime Rock Park?
slightly terrified. Uh, it's gonna be interesting. Let's just put it that way. Lime Rock is always a bit of an outsider. It's gonna be a race with a lot of action. But I don't really know what to expect. We haven't run it yet. It wasn't in one of the qualifier tracks. Um, so I've never driven the car on this track. So we'll see how it goes. I can't say I could tell you what to expect.
Now, while we're here, is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to for your second place finish?
Well, obviously the series organizer, Porsche, Apex V2R, and Marc-André for getting me in here. You guys for the broadcast, the French guys at SFTV, and obviously my team at NX Racing and our sponsors, CibiCube and V Racing.
Well, congratulations again on that second place finish. That was William Levesque here, looking to come away with the points lead possibly after Lime Rock Park. Thank you again, William.
Cheers, guys.
That was our second place finisher, William Levesque. And completing our podium, we have the third place driver, James David, who is going to join us in the commentary box. And he does. Well, goodness me, James, that was certainly it was out front. It was quite a calm race, but you were involved in a real bar brawl. Tell us about that race.
Yeah, thank you guys for broadcasting us, and that was a special race. I have to agree. Qualifying eighth, and after that, that was an endless, endless battle with from third to 10th. I was trying to catch up the guys, but sometime I just made a little mistake, and I was going back. But at the finish, I was pretty happy with the third. It was pretty unexpected on my side.
Yeah. So who was giving the most fierce challenge? Would you say during the race?
Only to try to catch up James Walker was like it was amazing. The first 30 minutes we were in like a train, and nobody was able to really have a good move on someone, overtake someone. So that was really hard just to catch up the guy in front of me. So I have to say I'm pretty impressed with the guy. The first lap was amazing because at Watkins Glen it's always something. The first lap in real life or a virtual world, it's always something. You're afraid because side by side at the bus stop can be a nightmare. So I was pretty happy to have Giovanni Romano just beside me. We know each other because we race in another league. We were battling all season long, so I was pretty happy to have him behind me. So I know how that guy was racing. So that was an amazing race.
Well, it's always nice to have a dancing partner in these kind of in these kind of situations. Now, before we let you go, and before we head off to Lime Rock Park in 2 weeks' time, while we're live here on the iRacing Esports Network, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to on the broadcast?
Yeah, yeah. I want to thank Apex Racing TV, Porsche, for this amazing opportunity to race with that amazing car, and my team, Davidson Motorsport. I thanks them for enduring me all season long. So that's pretty it.
Well, James, thank you so much for coming to join us in the commentary box, and let's hope we see you again in 2 weeks' time after Lime Rock Park.
Thank you. Good evening, guys.
So that was James David completing our run of podium finishers here in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada. It's nearly time for us to finish here on Apex Racing TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Brian, final thoughts on the race today? What did you think of today's action, and what do you think going forward to Lime Rock Park?
Well, I think the action is really what we expected it to be. A lot of battling throughout the entire field, and especially a lot of defensive driving towards the lead there. And we saw it eventually not work out, but it was a great battle when we got to see it happen. A lot of guys high in the points not having a great points day, and so that's going to shake things up a bit throughout the points field. But of course, those top two of Brandon Hawken and William Levesque have been on another level chasing one another. So it's going to be fun to see them battle out for the last two races and see what happens. Again, if either of them have a bad day and the other one doesn't throughout the series, then they could lose that points battle very quickly, even if someone wins more of the races. So it's going to be very interesting to see everything play out.
You're absolutely right, and with 100 points for a win, this championship is absolutely not over. And I think you're right. We're going to see a brilliant battle between Levesque and Hawken for the final two races. So, thanks very much to Porsche Canada for their organisation and support of sim racing in general, but also this fantastic series that they've put together. It's certainly been a pleasure for us to cover the racing and to talk about it as well. You can find out more information about Porsche on www.porsche.ca and find out where your local dealer is in Canada. And you know what? Treat yourself to a new car. Who wouldn't? A lovely new Porsche. So we'll see you in 2 weeks' time at Lime Rock Park. Myself, Peter Mackay, and Brian Delp will be there to welcome you, and also our wonderful producer, Marco Barbonera. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.